received an interest of 3,000 rupees, whereas Anita received an interest of 3,310 rupees. The interest rate offered by both the banks was the same. Surely, there must be some difference in the way the interest was calculated by the two banks. Can you tell what that difference is? Let's understand this. Tony's principal amount was 10,000 rupees. On the principal, he received an interest of 1,000 rupees each year. Thus, the total interest Tony received by the end of 3 years is 3,000 rupees. Now, let's look at how Bank B gave interest on the money that Anita deposited. She too invested a principal of 10,000 rupees. At the end of the first year, she received an interest of 1,000 rupees like Tony. This interest was added to the principal at the beginning of the second year. Thus, the principal for the second year was 11,000 rupees. On this principal, an interest of 10% was given, which is 1,100. Again, this principal was added to the principal at the beginning of the third year. So, the principal amount at the start of the third year became 12,100 rupees. At the end of the third year, Anita received an interest of 1,210 rupees. Thus, the total interest Anita received over a period of 3 years is 3,310 rupees. Note that in the case of Anita, at the end of each year, the interest was added to the principal. Therefore, her principal increased every year, and so did her interest amount. That's why Anita received more interest than Tony, although both invested the same amount with the same rate of interest. The interest calculated using this condition is called compound interest. Remember that in the case of Tony, we can find the interest by using the formula simple interest equal to PRT over 100. But do we have a formula to calculate compound interest? Let's try to derive the formula using an example. Tony borrowed a sum of 6,000 rupees for 2 years. The interest rate was 10% compounded annually. Find the compound interest and the amount he had to pay after 2 years. Suppose that P1 is the principal on which the interest is compounded annually at the rate of R% per annum. Therefore, P1 is 6,000 rupees and R is 10%. Let SI1 be the interest at the end of the first year. We use the formula for simple interest to find this interest. We also find the amount payable at the end of the first year. Let this amount be A1. This amount becomes the principal for the second year, which we consider as P2. Now, let the simple interest for the second year be SI2. We find SI2 using the principal P2. Then we find the amount payable at the end of the second year. Let the amount be A2. This amount becomes the principal for the third year. The compound interest, CI, can be calculated by subtracting the principal from the amount. If we continue in this way, the amount at the end of n years is as given here. This is the general formula to find the amount payable at the end of n years when the interest is compounded annually. The principal is P and the rate of interest per annum is R. Now, calculate the amount and compound interest when P is 2,000 rupees, R is 3% and T is 2 years. Mr. Shah borrowed a sum of 9,000 rupees with 10% rate of interest for a period of 3 years. Find the interest if compounded annually. So far, we have seen how to find the interest and the amount when the rate of interest was compounded annually. But the interest may not always be compounded annually. It could also be compounded half-yearly or even quarterly. Let's consider an example to understand this. Let the principal be 1,000 rupees. We observe what the amount is over a period of 1 year if the interest is compounded yearly and half-yearly. When compounded annually, the amount is equal to 1,100 rupees. Now, let's understand the term conversion period, which is associated with compound interest. When we say that the interest is compounded annually, it means that after a time period of 1 year, the interest is added to the principal to form a new principal. In such a case, the period of 1 year is called the conversion period. But when the interest is compounded half-yearly, the conversion period of 6 months occurs twice in a year. In such a case, the half-yearly rate is half of the annual rate. Thus, for the first 6 months, the interest is 50 rupees. We add this interest to the principal to get the principal for the next 6 months. Again, using the same formula, we calculate the interest and the amount for the next 6 months. Note that if the interest is compounded half-yearly, we compute the interest 2 times as against an annual compounding. Hence, the half-yearly conversion period occurs twice in a year, and the rate of interest for each conversion period becomes half. Now, can you solve this problem? Here's another problem. We have learnt that when the interest is compounded, the amount is calculated with the formula given here. Now, using the formula, let's try to solve a few problems.